The hallmark of a pleasant morning is the opportunities it brings with it. Today is indeed one such opportunity. Wishing everyone on the other side of the screen a very good morning. Today, we all stand virtually before one another with a delighted and very absorptive state of mind. I have the great pleasure to introduce one such guest who would certainly mark this morning as a momentous occasion. The School of Management and Liberal Arts at the NorthCap University proudly presents to you a webinar on design thinking and creative intelligence. I am profoundly delighted to introduce to one and all the chief guest for the day, Dr. Debarshi Mukherjee, sir. Sir, being an associate professor and head of the Department of Business Management at the Tripura University, is also the founding head of the Department of Tourism Administration. Not only that, among many other accomplishments, Sir has also established the state's very premier business incubator, while being the state coordinator for the AICTE program for Tripura. Our horizons are sure to expand through this virtual webinar, which will be graced by the words of Sir, as he holds extensive work experience in curricula design. It is no short of a privilege to have Sir present before us today. And so, without consuming any more time, I would like to invite Sir onto the platform to enlighten us with his pure wisdom and expertise.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I hope I'm audible to you all.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Let me share the screen first. I hope things are fine. Share. Is the screen visible to you all? Because I can't see you all.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, great. So, first of all, a very good morning to the students, the participants, the teachers, and especially Meenakshi for having me invited to be a part of this session. And she is a wonderful lady, wonderful researcher. I had the privilege of meeting her when she visited us for the conference. And here I'm sending my heartiest greetings from the northeastern part of this country to you all. Tripura, being the third smallest state in India, is perhaps gives me a lot of food for thought. The topic which you have chosen for the day, that is creative intelligence and design thinking, and it's the hotbed of these activities. I'll try to share some of them. And today we have taken a very big topic. I'll try to bring it down, or maybe I do not know, to tone it up for your understanding. And we'll try to share some of the important facets and why it is so important for us that we must all delve into this topic and understand it. Because today we all know that MBA curriculum and engineering curriculum, even the liberal arts program, everything has undergone tremendous change. Because today we do not talk about any rote learning. We talk about blended learning. We talk about curricular design. We talk about andragogic overtures. We talk about activity-based learning, outcome-based learning. And therefore, all such changes, even the present NEP, which we all talk about, is going to be implemented soon. They all call for one important aspect, that we need to change the way we have been thinking so far. So with this, I'll start the session today. I prefer to start with a very interesting quote by one such individual who has actually personified design thinking. Gentleman is Henry Dreyfus. Henry Dreyfus wrote a book in 1955 in the name of Designing for People. He was a design engineer. So what he wrote was that when the point of contact between the product and the people, so that means that is essentially the touch point between the user and the product, is a point of friction, which means that you are not liking it or you are not being able to make use of it maximum. The designer has failed. It could be very simple. Now you are using a very high-tech camera. I'm just trying to give a narrative to what I'm trying to derive from this statement. Let's say you are using a high-end mobile phone. or maybe a high-end camera. But then, do we all use all the functions? Or rather, do we know all the functions? For that matter, let's say you are using a microwave oven at your kitchen. So some of the pre-cooked menus are there. There are 36 function models are there. Maybe you are using a very high-end intelligent washing machine at home. So are we using all the functions? So this is the basic, I'll say, fallacy of the product, that the designer has designed it to be made the best use of it. But how many of us are actually using it to fullest? And there the designer has failed. So maybe if we are using only 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the functions, or maybe 10 at the most, and whether the system has got 20 or 25 different functions, so somewhere down the line, either the designer has failed or the user could not take the maximum advantage of the product. So whichever way it can take, we have to take a call on. So that is the point where the design thinking approach, design thinking, the paradigm has evolved. And let me tell you, this is not a very new concept, design thinking. Though it has taken the flavor of the day, everybody will hear they talk about design thinking. But design thinking came in sometime in 1950s, 48, around that time. Because the book itself was written on 55. So now it is an around 70-year-old concept, but still it is it's a rudimentary phase, even in the nascent phase. Fine. Now, the fundamental question, why we cannot make use of it, let me ask you a very simple question, which I guess you must have encountered in your time, that how do we think? So I'd like to take 1 or 2 quick feedback from this intelligent audience. Could you please tell me that what is the mechanism of thinking? Because we are talking about design thinking. So the thinking is one of the important aspects that contribute to the design of our thinking. Because sometimes, again, there is a fallacy, because there are the design thinkers are there, scientists are there. They said, are we design the thinking or we are thinking the design? So this is a very interesting dialogue, but I will not give it for the day. We'll do something else. But then primarily, what I would want you to comment on, what is your take on this question which I'm going to ask? Is it, thinking is natural process. We all think, unless until we are mentally retarded. Well, those people also have a thinking process involved. So what is the mechanism? How do we think? So can we have 1 or 2 responses quickly? Since I cannot see you, so if you can just unmute yourself and tell me your name and just quick comment.
Please raise your hands and then we will unmute you. Anybody wishing to answer sir's question, please raise your hand.
Oh, is it a very tough question? I think because that's we all do, right? We all think. We all have thinking mechanism built into us. But
Gaurangi, please repeat the question for others.
Anybody wishing to answer sir's question, please raise your hand.
Sir, I request you to repeat the question. Some of them have recently joined.
Oh, the question is, how do we think? What is the mechanism of thinking? How do we think? It's not a rocket science. I'm simply asking a very generic question. We all think. We all have our own respective minds, right? The question is, how do we think? Is there a process? Is there a system? Is there a taxonomy? Is there an architecture of our thinking process? Or your thinking process? How do you think? Let me frame the question, just reframe the question rather for you. How do you think? Applies to one and all.
Sir, I guess we think on the basis of our beliefs, our perceptions, we think.
Okay, no, certainly. Obviously what you are saying is, there's no answer is wrong. But let me break it to you that it is primarily because of the chemicals that are present in our brain. Now, this is something, a new finding, because earlier the sales, the advertisements, promotion, all such activities are considered to be a purely a social science activity, a marketing activity. But the day people have started concentrating on the mind, the brain, people have realized that there are certain chemicals which are present in our brains. They induce activities, they induce us to take certain steps. And they are known as neurotransmitters. I repeat, neurotransmitters. So you may ask, how do you realize it? I give you certain very simple examples which you must be, either you have realized or you will be realizing or you are realizing right now. If you are looking at your mobile screen for a long time period, if you are watching the videos on YouTube on your mobile phone, you will see that you will face sleeplessness. You will not feeling sleepy. That means your biological clock get disturbed, and that happens because of the less secretion of serotonin. If you are talking over your mobile phone for long duration, you will feel giddiness. That is the reason, because there is another neurotransmitter called dopamine gets secreted less. If you are shouting, if you are arguing continuously at top of your voice, you will see that your decision-making process, you get flared up very easily. That is because of the slow movement of another neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. There are 6 basic neurotransmitters out there. GABA-butyric acid, there are so many things out there. So primarily, the movement of those chemicals, I'm talking about the they induce our thinking process. You remember at our childhood, we were told that a person is known by the company he or she keeps. So that company means the environment. Though they induce the secretion of those chemicals. So therefore, the thought process it's not random. It has to be structured. It has to be serrated. It has to be, properly compartmentalized. It is properly segmented. So those activities are concentrated at certain sections, making you decisions where the influence of those chemicals on your brain gets concentrated, or maybe certain spots, certain influx, certain flow of those things, they make you think. That determines your flexibility, your moods, your moments. Some people are very happy, so that happy hormones are secreted. Some people are very sad in nature. At times, happy hormones are not secreted. Some people get very angry, so adrenaline rush happens. Those things actually influence our thought process. Now, let us see what should we be doing. I have titled this as Audacity and Humility. These two are the essential qualities when we talk about our thinking process. So what kind of audacity we have? It's not the behavioral audacity. The audacity to think that you can design something the world thinks you can't do. So you have to think beyond. Humility is the most important factor. That you are actually doing it for the welfare, public welfare. So innovations are of public welfare, not for your own benefit. And the focus on simple details. Like, I'll give you one simple thing. You must be seeing this button, right? You must have seen, those who have joined Facebook earlier, they must have seen those buttons. Now, this button, people spend around 280 hours because they concentrated on one simple factor. This is minor detail, simple, one like button. Now, for many of us, they do not hold much importance. Why? Because this is something, I mean, not what we were looking at for most of us. If you are liking something, just press the button and like and go on. But then for Facebook, it's a very important aspect because Facebook is used across, I think, more than 100 countries. So like is a word which may not be liked all across this globe because English dominance is not liked by many countries. So either you need to change it to the local language or you plan something which is universal in nature. So the universality of the language can be replaced by only one simple thing which is called a sign. Now in Facebook like button, I must be seeing only the thumbs up signature. So you will search for yourself and you'll find that thumbs up signature is for approval, which is like all across the globe, which is preferred all across the globe. It doesn't have to be, English or French or German or Spanish or Hindi for that matter. It's just a simple thing, and that's what I said, that this is one simple aspect of the change in the design and makes circular text less space, but it is very emphatic in nature. Another example, the Google screen. Now we must be seeing the Google screen. You open any device. I'm giving very blunt examples, which day-to-day, mundane day-to-day life we are using them. But have you ever considered that this Google screen, why it is white? Now, right now, some of the advertisements are coming for revenue, but primarily, even today, if you open it, you will see that it is coming without it. It's a white screen with few texts into it. So they look all the same. So universality is one of the important aspects. You try to create it in your own designs, that I'm going to design something today, maybe a product or a service with across all globe, like Uber. We all using Uber or whatever way you call them, the taxi, the car rental service. Now you will see wherever you will go, the screen looks all the same across all countries. Only the addresses will change. So this is I'm trying to talk about one of the important aspects, that simple details, that if I'm a user of Google or Uber for that matter, if I go to a different city or different country, if I find the screen has changed, I may feel a little inconvenienced, which I do not want. So therefore, there should be enough humility that your invention, your design thinking, your pattern, your change in that activity would cause people not to get any kind of inconvenience, but they are going to prefer your product. That also a surrogate way of telling that, okay, my design is accepted all across the people, across all age group, all countries, all caste, creed, religion. This is one of the important, very powerful, though it sounds very simple, but if you think it over and find that to make one thing, one design universally acceptable is a very, very big ask, very, very big challenge. Now, that is one important aspect. How should we go about it? So primarily, there are three basic reasoning techniques are there which we follow. One is adaptive reasoning, and second one we talk about deductive reasoning. The counter of it is inductive. Students of logic would understand this part. So adaptive reasoning primarily is that you observe certain things and you make the best prediction. Like elections, what we do in elections, that we go for a small sample size and go for an exit poll. So we take incomplete observations. Which party you have asked for one candidate, or maybe a candidate, not the contestant I'm talking about. Candidate means those who have voted. So for my sample. So one voter or one electorate you have asked this question. Likewise, 3, 4, 5 go for random or maybe clustered or maybe quota sampling and ask those questions to those people, and you try to make a guess. Now, this is what is, no, in some cases, mostly it is failed, some cases it succeeds. And the authenticity to this kind of predictions depends on the mechanism you have built in. the kind of parsimonious sampling technique has been used in order to get those codes right, that would determine what kind of design pattern you have used in framing the questions and selection of your candidates. Because it is very difficult that you need to cover the complete population in order to get a phenomena, in order to predict an output. But it is all the more important to select your samples. Therefore, whenever you are going for a design, you need to concentrate on the minute details, but you have to take a conscious call on who you are going to interrogate in order to get those details. The people, the user, the direct beneficiary of those services for which you are going to make a prediction. Now, I'll give you another example of this product. You must be seeing the Godrej hand wash. I'm not eulogizing any company, but you have seen the hand wash mostly come in the liquid form. I hope you all have noticed it. But recently we have seen that Godrej has brought out one hand wash which is powdered in nature. So you need to add water, shake it well, and it takes the form of a gel which you can press and use. This is one simple thing, because people have concentrated their mind in one understanding that if you are using a liquid pouch, so there is at least 2 or 3 or 5% of wastage happens which you cannot use, because the liquid gets stuck to the inner wall of that pouch. So that you need to throw it into your dustbin and you cannot make use of it. So therefore, but if I'm using a powder which does not stick with the inner wall, you can really drain it out in the box, pull some water, shake it and use it. So this is the observation one has to understand. Fine. And then we have the deductive reasoning, the top-down one, with the very general that if you see that there's a sun, you will say, okay, fine, there is it's day, if it's a moon, you call it night, and the specific observations are there in deductive reasoning. So you can call it, at night there will be moon, at day there will be sun. So these inductive or deductive reasoning, they are the cornerstones of your design thinking. Fine. Now let us quickly zero upon the basic idea of design thinking. So which is a complex thinking process. Why complex? As I have very categorically mentioned, because your mind you cannot predict. Can you predict what you are going to think in the next moment? Certainly not. Why? Because your mind is completely exposed to the extraneous stimuli that is existing outside your environment, or maybe in and around your environment. Right now I'm sitting and delivering and talking to you. Suddenly one thing happens in my office. So therefore I think that I'm going to talk about design thinking for another 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, but something happens, it can make it completely complex. So therefore, it's a complex process because you cannot predict the next moment, but it also involves the process of ideating new realities and augmenting new design culture in business and industry. So the ideation process, that means arriving at different ideas which you are converting into realities and augmenting a design culture. So design is not for one-time activity. It must not be the culture. Like I think we have set up an incubation center here where we try to augment the culture of design. That means one incubator walks up to my office and said that, sir, I have arrived at a discussion that after thoughtful discussion with my mason, that I have used that the rammed art structure. So I'll share some of the very brilliant ideas how I'm talking about the design culture. Here in Tripura, there are because of the poverty and the seismic structure, people are using the mud houses. They are staying in that, but they are not very sturdy. So one of the incubators, he has zeroed upon that if I could find a rammed art, that means I'm going to beat and pound the art, put some water and some chemicals to make it as sturdy as concrete walls. It can actually bear the strength of a huge roof on top of it. At the same time, it will not heat the house internally. So it's an interesting thing. But what about the seepages? What about the water? If it percolates inside, the chances are there that it may deplete. Okay, sir, I'm going to change it, the design. So that's what I'm trying to say, that if there is some gap, so once it is not that I have designed and once and for all it is closed. No, we need to consistently think about what makes the thing better from yesterday, from today, from tomorrow, the next day. So that is the culture of innovation. Even in your institution also, if we could inculcate that, okay, fine, some students are thinking on the new design, new product, anything, and it doesn't have to be always a product. A process innovation is also welcome. The way you have been, studying, you find a new way of doing it, and you can continue working on it, ensuring higher productivity. That's also a design culture. You can influence with your own example your fellow mates, your classmates. Sometimes you'll find that teachers are also following that mechanism of teaching. The entire ecosystem gets altered into a new dimension. This is what I'm talking about, the design thinking culture. It doesn't always have to be required to set up an incubation lab, sit on a chair, have a laptop in front of you and start thinking. No, it doesn't happen. It can happen, but it can happen over a discussion also. But most importantly, it has to be consistent. Fine. So let's quickly look at the personality of the design thinkers. So what are the basic qualities of design thinker? Empathy, integrative thinking, optimism, experimentation, collaboration. So what I'm trying to tell you here, because empathy is one of the important aspects. Now you can connect with empathy when I said that the humility is one of the important. So humility means that this is what I am going to design, what I am going to draw, draft, make an BPR into my process. It is not for me. It is not me who is going to get benefited. Rather, it is I'm doing it for the users, because they are suffering, they are struggling with the product or the service or the process. So if my design change, if my alteration can affect their lives positively, so therefore I am feeling empathetic to the cause, then I'm going to design. Fine. Next is I'm talking about integrative thinking. No, I'm not thinking in kind of a silo. It is consistent. I'm now one of another incubator here. The senior guy is much senior to me. He has designed a retrofit device for the auto rickshaws. Like right now, the auto rickshaws are coming in CNG. What about those auto rickshaws which are fitted with the diesel engines? So they are emitting very harmful gases to the environment. So he has designed a retrofit tool which could be fitted to those previously sold auto rickshaws, which can purify the air and thus increasing the longevity of the service. So now it doesn't always have to be a new one. It can be an existing old one, but it has to have a long horizon. And optimism, obviously, you must know that there is no end to it. One idea failure does not mean that you are completely doomed for the day. Experimentation and more importantly, collaboration. Maybe you can have one piece. The other person who is in your team may be providing you necessary technology, like we do hand-holding part. The Ministry of MSME is our funding agency. They provide us the necessary know-how. The tool rooms are there. They are providing a technical. If I think that I am the sole, I am the judge, jury, and the victim, so it doesn't happen in that way. So I also need assistance. As a design thinker, I also need assistance from the people who are from the domain area, who are having long years of experience more than me or the technical expertise. So I need to collaborate. So once I'm doing that, so perhaps I'm creating an ecosystem of design. So these are the fundamental steps those who have studied design thinking must be knowing. So primarily it starts with the empathy, which I have just now shared with you. From there, we move on to the define the problem. This is the most critical part, because most of the times we go round and round about the problem without properly identifying what is the challenge. And then you need to ideate. You need to get brilliant. All ideas are brilliant provided you are having a logic behind it. And then you design the prototype, then go for testing and implementation. These are the simple steps which are involved into the design thinking activities. There are many such examples are there. I think we'll try to cover a few of them. But there are certain issues that essentially takes us to the other important aspects of creative intelligence. So primarily what happens, in design thinking, because the thinking domain, the learning domain, it has got three major components, which is the cognitive part, which is the next is the affective part, and third is the psychomotor. Talking a little bit of neuroscience here because that intrigues me, that makes me think that this is a very interesting thing to look at, that all your actions, all your part, I mean, all your movements, all your emotions, they are so closely integrated that we are entering into a new domain called a reflective domain. So design thinking is actually a reflection of your reflective frame or reflective domain, which is an congregation of your affective, cognitive, and psychomotor domain of learning. So what you reflect today, I mean, in a very simplest sentence, what you are today, what you speak today is it is the associated effect of your emotion, your thinking process, and your action. Be it you write a very good article today, be it you fight with somebody, all such actions, they are essentially being contributed by the affective domain emotions. Sometimes it happens like your parents scold you, you get very emotional because you are having one attachment with your parents. So that means your affective domain is in the play.
I think something went unwell with the network from Devarsi sir, so we are trying to reconnect. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think I got disconnected somewhere.
Yes,
Right?
sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I do not know. And suddenly I was thinking I was speaking, but I cannot see.
It's all right, sir. You were there till the end.
Okay, fine, fine. Let me just. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay. Yeah. So I was talking about the issues with design thinking, which means that it's a culture of process efficiency and which tends to provide the creativity. But do you think the creativity can be delivered? Because it's again a sacrosanct psychological state of mind which compels you to design, develop. Again, the reflective domain. I hope we have been able to explain your reflective domain. Is there any question, by the way? I mean, I've been speaking for around last half an hour, 35 minutes. Is there any questions you can ask? Or we'll hold it for last, I guess.
Sir, sir, we are allowing candidates to unmute themselves. Just wait for 1 minute, sir.
Okay, okay, okay.
Sir, there is a question from
Yeah.
Amitabh Bose.
Okay.
Please unmute your mic and speak, Amitabh Bose. If anyone else is having a question, please unmute your mic and ask, sir.
I think Niharika in the process of unmuting all the participants, so we have to bear for another minute.
Okay, not a problem.
Hi, a very good morning. This is Ramita. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, Amitabh, go ahead.
Sir, a very good afternoon. So my question pertains on the design thinking point which you said is where Facebook has created one of the logos as.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes. Now you
Can you
can
hear me now?
unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, 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 better. Yeah, Amitabh.
Yes, also. So you stated that Facebook had created one of the design gestures on its Facebook page, which is a thumbs up. Now that
Yeah.
thumbs up logo as a picture designates as an approval or consent or liking to any of the stated notes of knowledge area. Now, if we consider this as a design thinking, and I wish to add a certain design to my point which says yes, is it possible that location to location or geographical constraint would impact that particular logo to be added? I will support it with an example. Uh, I remember there was a Cola campaign which was from US, it went to Emirates. Now the Cola campaign stated with certain of the visuals which had two visuals depicted in different manner. One was a person running, he felt thirsty, he had that drink, and he was cool. He just laid down as cool. Now, if we depict this into Emirates, they run on an opposite direction from left to right. That means a person who was running, he had that drink, he fell down and died. So how would as a design thinker, I would able to predict the designing part as a gesture that would be acceptable to all, and what is the market impact on it?
Okay. I think I got you partially because some of the voice tracking was there, but I think you were asking about an advertisement that was there, I think, in the Middle East and US. So I have not seen that advertisement, so I cannot comment on what they have done. But in this case, the Facebook part, your gestures is a sign of approval or likeness. It is practiced all across the globe that the Facebook team has designed. The language may have a barrier, the words may have a barrier, but gestures are, some of the gestures are universal in nature, not all, because the physical gestures across the globe carry different meaning. So I am not, there's no example given, but prime focus of the discussion was to identify that what a design thinker should look at to create an universal application which is liked by all. Now the Amazon logo, I mean, there are so many things. I think if you can look at the from left to right, the smile, the arrow. I mean, if you analyze that, you will find yourself a lot of examples of there in and around us. But primarily, even the design thinker, I'm telling you one thing, the how the windshield was designed in 1902, we all would expect that a mechanical engineer would have designed or would have developed the windshield of a car. But strangely, let me tell you, the windshield was designed by a nurse who was seeing that during rainy season the cars could not travel because the water splashes and it used to make the entire passenger sitting there in the car wet. So it has to wait till the rain subsides and then it has to travel. So therefore, design thinker, my observation was design thinker did not have to be a trained thinker, did not have to be an engineer or any particular specialty domain. It's only the observation, the focus to the details that essentially would crop up from their thought process, and essentially they would come up with a design. This is what I was trying to say. I hope I've been able to address your question.
Yes, sir. Got that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Any other question?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, in the current times when everyone is bombarded with social media and we all have access to Google, it's on our fingertips. And whatever information we seek, instead of really thinking and using our, as you said, the reasoning abilities, we just click on the Google and we just like search for things. So, what, according to you, can be a good way to inculcate these kind of abilities, whether in students or otherwise for us in general, especially in the current times?
Excellent question. Ma'am, your name, please?
Harshita, sir.
Ajay, Harshita. Wonderful question. See, I'll tell you, Google gives you what is stored in between, what is stored in their databases, what has been stored by people. But thinking is a process which is still left to the humankind to do it. There was one good article in the HBR came in 2012. It is talking about the digital Darwinism, where it had been said that the human-machine substitution, it narrates a story about a young mother who wakes up suddenly and finds, and in a nightmare, and she is able to think, or she has been rather little very afraid that what lies in the future for her kid, because everything has been substituted. Human effort is substituted by machine labor. So therefore, we may not survive. I mean, our survival is dependent on the machines. I mean, that is somewhat true because we are using IoT. But what possibly could be told to the students? Google gives the information, but those information are fed by the people. Google does not manufacture a single piece of information. It is the people who are actually thinking about the problems. Now, I'll tell you two examples which we are, I'm personally following and people are doing here. In our classroom teaching, when I was a student, I was told, suppose X is having a problem, suppose Y is doing something. So these days in teaching this particular situation, the problem has completely gone. We take real life problems, even for our summer internship programs or life training or life projects, we send our students to villages. We send our students to the rural areas because we are predominantly a rural state. So we send them there, ask them to identify the problem and find a solution. They may not be a good solution, but from there, some of them are so engrossed. One example I like to give, one of our students has recently been awarded for a very cost-effective pisciculture, culture of fish in artificial tanks. So those activities, the student has thought about it, that in the elevated tanks he has created within which he is doing farming, and also it is giving water. The wastewater is given to the plants. It is giving organically well-fed water given to the plants. Both ways it is helping. So the moment we inculcate those culture, that's the reason I said that we need to inculcate a culture of thinking. If as a teacher I am thinking, giving them the problems to think, the cases that we do, the problems that we solve, the solutions that they generate, if we integrate and we connect it with the social problems, because we are living in a society, our problems cannot be different from what society is facing. Initially, when we were students, we were studying in a silo. None of our teachers told us that, okay, you go to the, your nearby area, you go to your locality and find out what is the problem they are facing. Plastic wastage problem. So it does not always have to be marketing, segmentation, strategic thinking. It could be as minute. Waste disposal is a problem. So now from there, it has evolved. Now I give you one name. I hope you all have asked about Manrega, right? Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which is giving employment for 100 days to, I think, all the rural disadvantaged people. So who do you think thought about it? It came from one professor at Delhi School of Economics, George Race, right to education, George Race. So there are people who are thinking on those problems. So if they can, why can't we? Our solution may not be the best solution, but at least we could come up with the stage 1. Then somebody would take it up to stage 2, 3, and 4. That's the reason we become a community. And that's the reason it has to work. Now, I give you one example again. I mean, low carbon footprint. Now, fuel emissions are happening. There is a village, Panchayat, in Wayanad in Kerala. I hope you all have heard about it. It is the zero carbon footprint Panchayat declared in 2019, I guess. Belangadi. So it is famous for their Arabica coffee. But due to the pollution, the coffee yield was getting diminished with every year. So it was affecting their livelihood. And from there they have evolved removal of complete plastic. Somebody thought about the problem. It is not the manure that you give for the Arabica plants, but it is the removal of plastics, a different problem altogether. So this is something you have to inculcate. Look around, you will find so many problems are there. So waste disposal, their learning continuity issues, fuel emissions, electricity power consumption, so many problems are there. You may take one and start thinking about it. How could it come up with a solution? It could not be the best one, but then you can go ahead and do it. So do I answer, ma'am? I mean, partially I tried to answer your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the input. I guess as you said, that it's high time we engage with the social world around us, whether it's through curriculum, whether it's a very wonderful idea you gave, like visiting actual places and connecting with the real problems. That's how we can use the information, whether it's through Google, whether it's through any other source, to finally come up with innovative ideas. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead. I hope there are none. We can take a few more later on. So I'll quickly switch now from the issues of design thinking to the creative intelligence. Now, design thinking in itself, it's once it gets implemented, it becomes a chain of activities, very structured, linear, very less scope of further improvement into that process. And there the innovation dies to some extent, the people think about. The moment we try to the act of perfecting it, we create the more Six Sigma like of a setup, and therefore there is less almost improved version, a very perfect. Unless you go for a BPR or business process engineering, it remains the same. Then let's talk about the learning mechanism. So how do we learn? The learning mechanism says that there are two major ways we learn. One is the reinforcement and conditioning. Think about it, fundamental ways of learning. That means conditioning is the environment in which you are being taught. And second is the reinforcement. Continuously you have been spoken about one thing again and again. Remember when we were children, I mean, if you want to memorize certain concepts, we need to read it again and again. So your brain gets complete reinforcement. And then now the mechanism says that brain has immense capacity, but time has come when we need to unlearn certain things. So the conditioning is one part, reinforcement is another part, unlearning is another part, and the fourth is what real learning. So the kind of habits you had, the kind of food habits people have, the kind of problems people have in one part of the world may not be the same in other. So the problems which you are facing, let's say in Gurgaon, you come to Tripura, you may be finding that there are problems that are different. It's changed. So you need to unlearn certain things and then relearn it. This is the fundamental principle. Therefore, going by this, we need to concentrate on how we creatively find solutions. CQ is creative quotient. We call it, I used to call it earlier as intelligent quotient. Now people are talking about the creative intelligence or CQ. Now here the major agenda is to frame the problems and to make original solutions. It may be different domain, the gaming, scenario planning, systems thinking, design thinking. You beat anyone. It's an open world in front of us. Sociological approaches, just now we have discussed about it. That's not a psychological part, but you make your environment in your work field, your lab, and then you start to think about it. And you need to come up with certain creative ideas which is unique, which is people not have thought about it. Usually call it as out of box kind of thing. Because why it is important, this is I think a little theory I'll bring it here is about the fractal dimensions. I hope you all know about fractal dimensions. Fractal dimensions are repeating in nature, like cloud formations, the flowing river. I mean, you must have seen the way we have been taught in our school. We try to teach in the same way. The way the boss runs the office, when the junior becomes the boss, he tries to follow the same path. Rarely people try to change or make some amendments. The moment you try to break away from the cliche and try to do something new, you are actually getting out of those fractal dimensions. It's a repeating kind of thing. The government offices, the file processing, the pattern of file movement. So these are repeating and the traditional activities. So time we have to cut that recursion activities and create certain things which are new. Is one important aspect which is a detriment or which is I'll say inhibiting factor for creative intelligence. Second is the chaos, because we all know that we are living in a chaos. Chaos primarily means order without predictability. So can we predict the environment? Today it is sunny. Can we predict tomorrow it will be? Because there are so many things that are happening. So chaotic situation. So chaos happens everywhere. Fine. In stock market, the best example of chaos in stock market is you can look at. So things are happening in and around us. I mean, let's say government changes. Similarly, you will see there's an utter chaos creates because the earlier order gets upset by the new order. So therefore, chaos is an inevitable part. So whatever things we have in our hands, so we have these activities are constantly happening. So the first part, as you have said, go back to the previous one, fractal dimensions, chaos, and the third is the entropy. So entropy is present. We cannot design, which is the randomness in our closed system. So anything can happen. Anything can happen in the form of an organization. People make decisions. People cause changes to happen. Everybody is a game theory, like your win is my loss, vice versa. So we all talk about the strategic objective, goal alignment and all, but within the organization, there are small groups activities, which is called the grapevine. I think in communication, business communication, people teach about grapevine communication and all. Similarly, this grapevine actually causes randomness in a closed system because organizations are closed in nature, but still there are people who are working in and against the different organizational setup. And then it happens to distort or disorient the entire organizational activity. It is natural order. I'm not saying these are the very welcome activities or this is to be discarded completely. We cannot discard it. These things happen because human mind is very difficult to predict. So what people can think. So you meet an employee today, instruct him or her to do something. You do not know what is happening in his or her mind. Fine, but then the mechanistic organizations, very structured organizations like defense forces, the cops, even there is some element of such entropy that happens, and one small entropy can change the fate of the organization in a big way. One small error, a small mistake that can change the organization or the entire setup. It doesn't have to be a factory or a corporate, any group, political party, everywhere such thing happens. One discipline, one such kind of dissent happens. It can upset the entire structure the rank and file of the entire organization. Fine. And then I'll tell you one important aspect, the butterfly effect. I hope you must have heard of it. So butterfly effect, again, it came from the Ed Lorenz, a mathematician, the weather forecasting team. It says that a small flap of wing by one, a butterfly can cause, which happens in Mexico, can cause a tornado in Texas. So this means a small error at the initial phase. You can see in the graph, the straight line, the blue one, the desired activity or desired output line, but a small error at the initial stage, if not rectified, can cause a huge error. So that decimal becomes very important. So I'll try to give you some examples. So I'm running out of time, so I'll try to quickly give you some examples. So one is the Paytm activity, one chaotic system output. Now, Paytm, I do not know. I'm not again, pricing for this company. It came, I think, I do not know. It has been there since 2013 or 14, but gained prominence only after demonetization happened, and the rise was around 150%. Fine. So this is the butterfly effect. One small incident of demonetization. I don't know small or big, but it happened. But then the Paytm raised. Now from there, it had evolved to a certain level that it has created a havoc. Now here I'm going to give you a very classic example of butterfly solution, how it happened. Even the best solutions aren't for everyone. Now what you see in the left hand side, the complete bridge that was erected in Honduras. So Honduras is a country where it faces complete tornado and all. So the authorities decided that we let us make a good bridge over this river so that the transport becomes very easy. So that year, I think it was created in somewhere, again 2000s, I think 16, something like that. Again, the tornado came, but then it did not cause much trouble to the bridge. But what happened? The river changed its course. So what you see on the right hand side is the new image of the river. Now you see it does not flow anymore beneath the bridge. It changes its course. So therefore, the investment which was made to erect the bridge now is in waste activity. So therefore, even if you create the best solution, even if you have created the state-of-the-art architecture, looking at the problem, you concentrated on the minute details, but then there are some effects that can happen. The randomness, the butterfly effect can cause the best of the output into a wasted effort. And there, creative solutions like, I can go ahead and talk about it, like the Paytm's payments bank. Now I'll tell you one thing: the Book My Show kind of movie hall, the web services I'm talking about, Flipkart and all. You follow the Paytm exercises, Paytm banks and all. Everywhere they are trying to evolve. And you look around, you'll find multitude of examples are there. Find the paper and parcel. One small example I'll quote here. How it had observed. Now in Mumbai is a very busy city. Paper and Parcel again is a company which has been set up by a class 8th grade student. I think Ketan Parekh, I guess, if I'm not mistaken the name. This boy has seen that within the city, shipping the material from one place to another, courier services, within the day, in a day when the courier service is absent. So what he did, he observed that the dabbawalas of Mumbai are providing the excellent food services, so he tied up with them. Through dabbawalas, his company sends packets from different places. It's a win-win for dabbawalas and the company both, because in any case they have to take the and provide the food to the different offices. But here, while they are going with the food or returning from with the empty tiffin carrier, they are shipping the additional packets. So this is what I'm trying to tell you, that you have to sniff the opportunity. and find out that what are the success. That is a successful, it's continuously, it is running and growing every year. It's a logistical mobile provider that you are riding on somebody's network. The OTT platform, everything that had happened, they changed the history. The Netflix and all, you look at them, these all are the creative solutions in a big picture, which has come to provide and extend the, harness the advantage and build on that. Fine. Now I'll conclude here today with this learner matrix, because this is, I asked you in the first couple of slides, that how do we learn. So this is one of my models which I think got published last year, that I think for teachers also, for students also, you can find out yourself. I'm going to tell the characteristics of them. So these are the 4 quadrants, and all learners in the class fall into any one of these quadrants. First category is of the induced learners. Induced learners who are actually being forced upon the content. Then next is the rote learners who continuously cram things. Third is the traditional learners who are being exposed to a lot of content, and the fourth is the mature learner. Now how, yeah, any question? Okay, so let me continue. So the basic change that I am seeing here, if I could frame it, so from the time perspective, for induced learners, the time is less, the content engagement is low. That means you are just introduced to the subject. So you are induced learner, somebody motivated you to study for MBA or any MA or PhD or engineering, anything. So you have been exposed to the content for less quantity, less amount of time, and the content engagement is also low. Second is, you have been giving high engagement, high content, time is less. So what you are doing, you are compelling yourself to cram, mug up things. So you become a rote learner. The third category is traditional learners. Enough time is happened, but engagement is very low. Engagement is online, offline content. So you have become a traditional learner. But the objective is to remain in the mature learners category, where the high engagement is there, both in the blended form and the offline form, and you are giving enough time. So self-learning happens. So our objective is to have more number of mature learners in the class. And another caveat I want to pass here is that these positions are not stationary. If you are a mature learner today, it does not mean tomorrow you become an induced learner, fall into the category, depending on your continuous perseverance in that particular. And then it is the two others extremes of the spectrum is here. One is data and the design thing. One side you are having high content, and second is that if you are in a mature learner category, you are able to think. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Any problem? Any question?
Sir, please unmute yourself. Mukherjee sir, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So, shall I repeat it? I mean, how much did I miss?
So no, you just missed for a fraction of seconds.
Okay. So now I think I was in the last part of my presentation.
Yes,
I was trying to tell that the mature learners is the basic set of people who we are looking at to become the design thinkers, because they are the people who are having high or active engagement with the content, blended offline form, and enough time for self-learning. This is what we want to achieve for our students. And students, you must concentrate, look at the matrix, and you figure out Where do you belong? Be a very honest judge of yourself and look at which category you are belonging. If you are not in the matured category, you are not thinking beyond your I mean, existing patterns of traditional learning. You are not engaging with the content. So perhaps it's a time for you. It's a wake up call for you to look at and then start thinking. Look at the problems and find the solution. Do not worry about the outcome, but at least you should be thinking and start thinking right now. So with this, we come to the end. So thank you very much. I'm open for questions if there are any.
What a surpassingly valuable session that truly was, sir. It was particularly enticing to hear you speak about the CQ concept and neurotransmitters as a whole. The floor is now open for any and all questions that may be addressed towards sir. Please unmute your mic and speak.
Sir, I'll be asking one question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So at times we talk about local problems and we try to impose global solutions on them. And we do not, we simply put that based upon, let's say that our bureaucrats, I attended one session and I learned from that session that as a bureaucrat, of, the process of becoming an IAS, we study the theories which are given by Western thinkers. And then based upon that, we develop some mentality and we try to replicate the same in let's say Indian problems. So that is a big gap which I understood. And what can be the way out, or maybe people shall there are a lot of theories which were given by Western thinkers. So at times I feel that there is a huge gap between what we study, what we have to practice, and like that.
Yeah, indeed, that's a very genuine concern which you have raised. Yeah, administrative bottlenecks are there. There are policy paralysis also. They are there. But today, I think, as academicians, as students, we have the right to raise our voice. If you have a genuine concern, you will be seeing that these days a lot of innovation activities are happening because policy does not, form, or it doesn't get formed in on a platter. It comes or it evolves with a lot of exercise and expertise. So therefore the first stage towards a policy framework is the innovation. Now you will see the Atal innovation labs are there, Atal tinkering labs are there, the incubation centers are there. This is actually the farm field for the young minds, the students. Even the teachers can also participate in that to create something, develop something. If you have a brilliant idea, you share it with a lot of people. There are different forums out there. You can write to the ministries also. They may check you out. They may not listen to you, but then you must not stop. You may create and build a community. That's what I'm saying. The homogeneous community build-up is very important. Let's say in your university, you can form a community, share the good activities, good deeds and thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And I can guarantee you, if you are doing something good, you will be getting attention from different quarters. You cannot even think from where people will look at, because people are looking at it. I give you one example. I forgot the name. There's a lady in Arunachal Pradesh who brews wine made up of kiwi. Kiwi is a fruit that is cultivated in Arunachal, and she recently got started huge funding from the government of India. The point is, it is the work which you are doing. It is not about what the administrative officers are saying. I'm not saying they are not doing the good thing. They are also managing the one pillar of our democracy. But fine, but over and out, the responsibility lies on us, the teachers, in case of policy framework. Because major policies, I just said, right to education, right to information, Manrega, this all came from academicians. So therefore, we do have a huge responsibility, but only thing we need to work on it and pray.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Thank you so much.
I hope there are none, so we can wind it
So
up.
wait. Yeah, is there any question left? Anybody want to ask any question? All right, sir. I think there is no question further.
We are very grateful to you, sir, for having accepted our invitation and marking your presence here. We would also like to express our gratitude towards Swaranjeet ma'am, Meenakshi ma'am, and Priyanka ma'am for organizing such a beneficial event so seamlessly. And of course, to all the participants who have come forward today, you would all be receiving e certificates shortly on your registered email. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. Thank you, sir.